Ah, yes. History in Waco. The Bears dominate KU. Scott Drew gets his third straight win against the Jayhawks in Waco. And this, it's getting too easy, is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Baylor. Drake Toll from Sports Illustrated. It's Inside the Bears alongside Isaac Shade from College Basketball. Locked On College Basketball, it's podcast. And look, this game was big enough for Baylor and Kansas that it belongs on Locked On College Basketball. So a crossover today. Thank you for making our shows your first listen every single day. We've been plugging Isaac for a while, and the Bears. Scott Drew has won 5 of his last 10 against Kansas. That's only 500, but prior to that, Baylor was 4-30 against the Jayhawks. 3 straight home wins against KU. They beat the number 9 team in the country, and the students didn't even storm the court. More so even than talking about this individual game, tonight was a culture display for Baylor.
100% it was, and I love it. You got celebrities on hand, and Joe's wearing a Silos hat. Lots of fun stuff there. Jay Billis is over there. John Shambi, they're taking pictures with him. It's great stuff. I love not storming the court because it shows we're Baylor and we're just as on top of this national college basketball conversation as Kansas is right now. And boy, what a just massive opportunity, a massive win for Baylor, for Scott Drew. And boy, they are coming alive at just the right time.
LJ Cryer tonight. Ooh. I mean, look, he didn't have a great second half, but 19 points in the first half, comes out firing. That was the biggest part of this game for me was, all right, I think Baylor's going to start hot. It's what they've done in a couple games this season, but how do they sustain that? And it was guard play, even against Grady Dick and Jalen Wilson, who are so good.
Great
Baylor's were better.
They are. And I've said it over and over and over, even as Baylor scuffled earlier this season, that Baylor to me is the most dynamic, as they have been the last couple seasons, the most dynamic backcourt in all of college basketball. And
big statement there, all of college basketball.
I believe it. Like, I'm not just saying this because it's you and I talking. Like, I have said, I think they're the best 3-guard starting lineup in the country. I mean, you just, and when these guys, when Adam Flagler, when LJ Cryer, and when Keontae George bring it all together, it's incredible. And in this game, they didn't even need much Keontae George. He just had 8 points in this one, shot 0 of 5 from 3. But when you had LJ, like that first half for LJ Cryer was something different, man. And the back and forth of these two, the last, from like minute 8 to about minute 4, when they were just trading threes back and forth, that was just fun, high-level basketball between two great Big 12 teams.
Yeah, I'm the crazy part of all of this to me. This is the second game in a row that you've seen Baylor offensively struggle. Struggles not an overreaction. They shot 37% to Kansas 46%, but they forced turnovers, 15 turnovers, and it was 19-8. They led the points off turnovers battle. This game was built, you said it earlier, on defense. Baylor that's the one thing that they've all year long, like, all right, what are we not very good at right now? It's been defense. But Isaac, to me, this was a Baylor D, and it has been the last couple of games, that is a complete 180 from that 0-3 stretch they had just a couple weeks ago.
Yes, it absolutely is. Because you mentioned Jalen Wilson, Grady Dick, they got theirs. They're going to do that. Combined for 47 of Kansas' 69 points. Yay. What they did was they shut off the other valves. KJ Adams only had 4 points. He's been great for Kansas lately. DeJuan Harris, more of a facilitator, but still, he scores often. Only had 2. Kevin McCullough had 14, but then this is key. You look at it. When you're getting into Kansas's bench, MJ Rice, another stud freshman who Bill Self criminally underuses, and I don't get it, had the only 2 bench points for all of Kansas's roster tonight. So 67 of their 69 come from the starters. And when you're like, sometimes it's just one of those where you pick your poison. It's like, you know what? Jalen Wilson, go off. Grady Dick, shoot the lights out. we're going to shut down a couple guys. And tonight that was KJ Adams and DeJuan Harris.
Yeah, works to perfection. Baylor goes from the 9:57 mark. This is nuts. From the 9:57 mark in the second half to the 2:55 mark. That is 7 minutes and 2 seconds. 0 field goals. 0 field goals. 0 field goals. And that's where the game was won. They forced turnovers. They got to the free throw line. They held the ball in spades on multiple possessions, and they got offensive rebounds. They were just draining clock and controlled the offensive board all night against Kansas. Now, last night when this is airing, and you get a win where Bill Self, he said in the postgame press conference, I asked him because Mike Boynton's team mentioned that Baylor did not force Oklahoma State's hand. Even in a 15-point win, they didn't feel like the defense made them uncomfortable. And Bill Self said that Baylor kept Grady Dick and Jalen Wilson from getting their shots, and they still put up over 45 points combined, which to me, again, says a lot about what Baylor's defense did.
And efficiently so. Like Jalen Wilson went 10 for 16, Grady Dick 8 for 13. Both shot well from three, a combined 5,
which is them
12.
shooting uncomfortable shots, apparently.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, legitimately, both of these got like Jalen Wilson is a legitimate National Player of the Year candidate. Absolutely. Alongside Zach Edey. Grady Dick is easily one of the top 5. Like if we're making an all freshman first team All-American, Grady Dick is right there at the top of that, along with Brandon Miller and a couple other guys. Like I'm putting him in that conversation, and Keontae George would obviously be there as well. And so that's another thing I love about this game that we haven't even talked about is this is 2 of the best freshmen in America, which is super duper fun there. But I mean, you talked about the rebounding, Drake. I want to go back there for a second. For Baylor, I mean, they win the rebounding battle overall just by 2, but you look at it, man, they're almost dead even with offensive and defensive rebounds. 17 offensive rebounds, 18 rebounds. When you're attacking the glass with that level of just violence, when you're a team that utilizes 3 guards regularly, man, that's something different. And I haven't even mentioned Langston Love yet. Like we talked about Crier and George and Flagler, but you mix in Love's 11 points, and those 4 guys combined for 58 of Baylor's 75, just doing work.
Yeah, the offensive boards were nuts. Scott Drew said post game that Jonathan Chachua is a big reason why, to which I was confused. Apparently he's practicing now. He's on the floor in practice, and Scott said if you don't fight for rebound, then John will throw you down. It's like, I thought John was in a wheelchair. What are we doing right now? But his trajectory, like of all of the things that I was expecting to hear post game press conference, now you might get JTT back too in a March Madness scenario. Isaac, this Baylor team that was 0-3, and we were all wondering what's going on a couple of weeks ago. Myself, I was wondering what was going on. They are good again.
They are. And listen, man, if JTT gets back, I saw him pregame working out on the court with the team, getting some shots up. From everything I'm hearing, the timeline for his return is still like kind of undetermined. But boy, if he could get back and is in any kind of, I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's not just about getting back, but it's about game shape and what he looks like, right? And that's going to take time, especially coming off not just a knee injury, but where there were nerve ending issues. Man, that's difficult to do. But if he can be 70 to 80% of himself, and even if he doesn't take over the starting spot from Flo Thamba, like if he can give Thamba legit backup minutes, come on, man. That's just unfair. And obviously this team is going to be massively battle tested coming out of the best conference in college basketball. And there is reason for hope on the horizon, both short term and the rest of the season.
Yeah. Now, Isaac, before we get to Scott Drew and clips from his press conference, you've got the national show, man. This is the stuff that's going to air everywhere. So I want to turn it over to you. And we got the blue screen here. Let you be the host for a little bit and give your glaring big picture questions about this Baylor team. But first, Isaac, what is your favorite thing about FanDuel?
Oh, man, my favorite thing about FanDuel is that where I live in Missouri, I can only play the fantasy game, and I can't do the sports line betting yet. But no, seriously, I love FanDuel. It's where I have always done all of my daily fantasy sports betting, so I love it.
Yeah, FanDuel is the place. It's number one sportsbook in America too. So all the odds that we get right now are via FanDuel, and it makes it super succinct. And if you join today, you can get started with $150 in free bets. That is guaranteed whenever you place a $5 bet. You basically get $150 in free play right now. FanDuel.com/locked-on. It is all your favorite bets, from money lines, point spreads, teasers, player props, you name it. The NFL is going on a same game parlay. This weekend, you've got the AFC, the NFC championship games as well. It's safe, it's secure, it's super easy to use. Football fans, don't miss out. $5, you get $150 in free play at FanDuel.com/locked-on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Drake, thank you so much for turning over the Baylor hosting hat to me. This is Isaac Shade, the host of Locked On College Basketball. I am joined today by the host of Locked On Baylor, Mr. Drake Toll. Does great work there for the team out of Waco, Texas. And Drake, here's where I want to start with this game. Baylor and Kansas have played 44 times in the history of this series, and this is the first ever time that Baylor has won back-to-back games in the series. I mean, that is insane to me. What does that mean for this program that has risen over the past half decade or so to national prominence, unheard of? Scott Drew is doing work. But what does it mean to do this against the Big 12 perennial frontrunner, the Kansas Jayhawks?
You know, the Kansas game was a 15-year anniversary of Baylor beating Texas A&M in 5 overtimes in the first ranked game under Scott Drew. And tonight felt so fitting to me. Last night, felt so fitting to me because the students didn't rush the court. This is such a culture moment that Baylor knocks off top 10 Kansas, and who would have ever seen this coming 15 years ago? And the students are like, oh yeah, well, that's it's kind of what we do. It's a normal Baylor win. The fact that this was a normal win, or has become that at least, says so much about Scott Drew. That was the telltale for me. The students didn't rush the court, which just makes me smile. Scott said post-game, like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't really know what we could do to rush the court at this point. We've kind of reached the apex of college sport. So that is this win against Kansas. And again, this win that puts Scott Drew at 5-5 against Jayhawks in the last 10 matchups, coming off of 4-30 not too long ago. It shows that Baylor's there. They're where they want to be in college basketball. And that's something that 20 years ago, not a lot of people saw coming.
Drake, I mean, just as recently as about 2.5 weeks ago, people were basically leaving Baylor for dead. They were sitting at 10-5 overall.
It's me, Isaac. I'm people. That was me.
0-3 in Big 12 play. But let me contextualize those losses, if I may. A neutral court loss to Virginia, like we're talking to all the losses, who, to me, I know Clemson's on top of the ACC right now. Virginia's should project to win that conference. A loss to Marquette. Nobody really knew at that point who they were. Marquette is legitimate shot at winning the Big East, 8th right now at KenPom. And then these 3 straight Big 12 losses to start conference play at Iowa State. We were just starting to learn at that point how legitimately good Iowa State is. And then a home loss, but it's TCU who is starting to come back around after a rough start. And then Kansas State, same kind of thing, picked dead last preseason in the Big 12 poll. Now they have sole possession of first place in this conference. And so I look at those 5 losses and I'm like, you know what? That ain't too shabby, right? Like, those are legitimate and understandable losses. But since that time, Baylor has reeled off now 5 straight, albeit before the first 4 of that, before Kansas, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma. And you look at those and you're like, well, yeah, those are probably the 4 worst teams in the conference, but you won them. And then you turn around and you beat Kansas at home. What has kind of flipped things for Scott Drew's team?
Nothing. And that's something that I've had to come to terms with. This is the nature of the Big 12. I don't know if I truly understood that until Bill Self took the podium last night and was given the exact same question. Bill, you've lost 3 games. What is happening? And he said, look, it'd be different if we lost 3 games and the sky is falling, we're playing bad. We've lost 3 games in the Big 12. This is just the nature of the league. Scott Drew lost 3 games, one in Hilton Coliseum where nobody wins ever. One against a TCU team that just beat Kansas by 20 at Allen Fieldhouse, and one to a Kansas State team who's the number one team in the Big 12. That's just the nature of this league, and Baylor got those three teams stacked in their first three games. So looking back at those, and even if you follow Shot Quality, which is one of my favorite analytics sites, Shot Quality had a couple of those as projected wins for Baylor. Wow. It's just a matter of, in the Big 12, these games where you find the shots that are open and you should make, you're not always going to make them, and the other team will. And that was the nature of the beast at the time. So what's different now? Absolutely nothing. It's the same Big 12, and Baylor might go on another 3-game losing streak, but welcome to every night in this conference. There is no Louisville. There is no Cal. There is no any of that. It is the Big 12, and we've had to come to terms with that.
And that's such a good reminder, Drake, for the record-looking crowd. There are so many, and understandably so, casual college basketball fans who look at a 10-5 Baylor team and say, oh, they must not be good. But when you start digging into what those 5 losses are, as we just have, and you start looking at Big 12 play, as you said with Kansas, like looking at this 3-game losing streak for them, it's at Kansas State in overtime. Okay, yeah. Fine. It's home to TCU over the weekend. Now, granted, they got blasted in that game. And then this game that we're talking about right now against Baylor. Now, for Kansas, it ain't about to get any easier. They got to go to Kentucky this weekend, who's starting to figure stuff out. And then the 3-game stretch after that, home against Kansas State, at Iowa State, home against Texas. There is a legitimate world where Kansas could find themselves losers of 7 in a row or 5 out of 7 or whatever it may be. Keep in mind, Bill Self has never this is his 20th year at Kansas, in 2 decades at Kansas, never had a 4-game losing streak. And in fact, he's only had 4 3-game losing streaks. Yeah. There's a very real possibility that Kansas could be facing that on Saturday at Kentucky. But when you think about Kansas, I mean, their only other loss is a neutral site at Tennessee, who is also one of the top teams in the nation. As you've just said, the Big 12 is insane. Now, thankfully, the selection committee is not Johnny Q average record looker. They're getting into the weeds and the minutia on all this to see quality of game, quality of loss. And that's what puts a 3-game losing streak for Kansas, a 3-game losing streak for Baylor in a good spot. I mean, are you feeling good about, like, I mean, for Baylor, you look at the rest of this schedule, what do you think is a good, hopeful projection for how Baylor can do down the stretch of the season?
Yeah, Baylor's 5-3 in the Big 12. That's a lot better than I thought they would be when they were 0-3 in the Big 12. I didn't know they'd rattle off 5 in a row. And so you go from staring down the barrel of, wow, does Baylor finish 8-10 in the Big 12? And, are they still like a top 5 seed there? Now you're more comfortable with the idea of Baylor winning 12 games in conference play. And 12-6 in the Big 12 puts you on the line of being a top 3 seed in this tournament. I think they 100%. Still would be, you'd be a 2 or 3 seed if you look at the strength of schedule in the Big 12. The Big 12 may play itself, but it may eat itself alive to the point where there's only one or no 1 seeds coming out of the league, but that's going to be the nature of every team in this conference should end up with 5 losses in league play. So Baylor, best case scenario is 13-5 in Big 12 play. And I say worst case in air quotes here is 10-8, which is still putting you in the Big 12 as a top 5 seed in the NCAA tournament, because that's what this league is. Baylor could be a 10-8 conference team that goes to the Final Four, and I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest.
Not at all. Let me put it to you this way, Drake. Let me get your take on this. The Big 12 champion over under, Big 12 regular season champion, I should say, over under 6 conference losses.
Oh, here's why I'd say under.
Let me 5.5. How about that?
5.5. I'm going to say under 5.5. I'm going to put it right at 5. I'm going to put it right at 5 losses. I think there's going to be one team who doesn't get lucky, but Kansas State, for example, has won enough games in the front end of their schedule to be put in a good spot to only lose 5. I still won't be shocked if it's 6 for sure, but I put that number at 5 right now. 13-5 for the Big 12 champion, which is still nuts, by the way. 13-5 is still pretty crazy for your regular season champion, but again, nature of this league. So give me 5 losses for the Big 12 champion, but don't be shocked when it's 6.
Okay, and as for Baylor, listen, by virtue of beating Kansas tonight, they're technically tied at 5-3 in the conference, but have that tiebreaker. And so Baylor's in fourth place, just 2 games out in the loss column behind Kansas State. And so, listen, there is a very real possibility that we could find ourselves in March and Baylor could be the Big 12 regular season champion. What a wild and wacky story that would be. Now, we look ahead just briefly, Drake. I want to get your take. I love that the Big 12 and the SEC continue to do this late January crossover. Earlier this season, we would have looked at this matchup with Arkansas coming up on Saturday and said, man, that is a tough game, a fun guard game.
Yeah.
But Arkansas, man, has suffered some big injuries. Trayvon Brazil's out for the season. Nick Smith Jr., we don't know if we'll see him again until Arkansas has hit some tough strides. They've lost, man, what is it now? 4 out of their last 5 out of their last 7. And so this game has lost some luster, but it's still a great crossover. What are you hoping for in this step out of Big 12 play on Saturday?
Yeah, Saturday's a good bit away, which is good for some rest for these guys because they need it. But for the talking heads, I'll be previewing this game all week because born and raised in Valonia, Arkansas, with an Arkansas license plate behind me. It certainly means a little bit more to yours truly. And the reason Baylor wins this game, likely by double digits, is because they're not playing Maui, Arkansas. If they were playing Maui, Arkansas, you're looking at a team in the SEC with 5 or more wins already. They instead are playing Nashville, Arkansas. That Arkansas Vanderbilt game on the road was, to me, pretty postcard for what you're going to get out of Arkansas at this point in the season. They're not going to play very well on the road because they are so young and their athleticism has been docked by injuries. So this is not a team that scares me very much at all. They haven't done enough in SEC play at all to scare me either. And I think they're going to get a tight one against LSU tonight. So there is nothing about this Arkansas team yet. Eric Musselman has this uncanny knack for starting slow and then finding a way to start winning games down the stretch and making a run in March. I think they do it, but not yet. They need some kind of click, but I don't think it happens in Waco.
All right, we will have our eyes peeled to this Big 12 SEC matchup coming up on Saturday. My co-host Andy Patton will have a big fat preview of that on Friday's show. Drake Toll, thanks so much for joining us today on Locked On College Basketball.
That was Isaac Shade from the Locked On College Basketball podcast. Go check him out for more full scope of college basketball. Good dude, just a good dude. Likes Baylor too, by the way. Scott Drew, what do you think about that win? KU, you beat him again. You're getting too good at this. Too easy. Scott, take it away.
Well, it's always an honor and privilege being on Big Monday. And the longer you coach, the more appreciation you have for opponents. And, I mean, you look at the last 3 years, us in Kansas, the winningest Power 5 programs in the country, and last 2 national championships. And when you beat them, you have to beat them. They're not going to beat themselves. And really proud of our guys. I mean, we shot 28% second half and found a way to win. Really proud of how we competed on the glass, how we took care of the basketball. We got a culture of joy, and when things get tough, Adam, Flo, and John do a great job making sure everyone stays together and controls what they can control and competes. And blessed to coach guys that care like that. Obviously, when we were 0-3, people want to know what changed. I mean, it was 2 one-possession games, so it wasn't like we were terrible. But credit the upperclassmen for doing a great job. And I thank God every night when we don't have any injuries, because we've had a nice string where we haven't had anyone out. And it's a blessing when you can practice and get better and when you can have some consistency.
Considering what Langston has had to go through to get back to this point, that had to be pretty gratifying to see him perform like that.
Yeah, I'm really excited for him. He's worked really hard. Everyone knows him. He's a really hard worker. But, I mean, they think he's his second year in college, but he tore the ACL and didn't have any – I mean, it was in October, rehabbed, recovered, didn't get cleared for contact till September, October. So he's behind all the freshmen coming in because he didn't even have the summer. So I know he's worked really hard, and I knew after semester in December, January, he started to move a lot better, and I knew this semester he would have some good basketball in him, and he'll just get better from here.
Scott, you said the biggest thing coming into this You guys ended up winning that by 6. How big was the defensive effort from your team today in forcing those turnovers?
Well, I think we fed off the crowd's energy, and I mean, when you play 3 out of 4 on the road, you're a little tired, and it's Big Monday, which is coming off Saturday. It's a quick turnaround. I thought the crowd was tremendous, and that really helped us have the intensity we needed. And I mean, both teams were making it tough, switching everything, and we did a great job identifying opportunities to drive, and our guards have gotten a lot better at that since the beginning of the year.
So how important was that start? Because such a hot start, you have the big crowd. How big was that?
Definitely, you got to get the crowd involved, and there's nothing worse than having a great crowd and never get them involved. So I thought that the start was important.
Scott, you mentioned a while ago that rebounding was something your team needed to emphasize. You've only been out rebounded 1 in the 8 Big 12 games you've played so far. What clicked?
Players buying in and really competing, working hard to get better. John's practiced a little bit too, and his physicality makes everybody compete a little bit harder. If you're not blocking out, he'll knock you over.
Scott, they switched 5 tonight.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something they typically do
Mm-hmm.
through a whole game.
Yeah, they did a good job at it too.
Did it change the way that you approached offense when you saw that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you're switching everything, then you're more taking advantage of matchups, and our guards have gotten better at it. We need to still keep improving at it, but that was something that we knew they would do some of it. Obviously, not that much, but the way we started. We're the exact same way. We're going to change if something's not working.
And you guys are now the last 4 years 4-3 against them, and for them to come in and change something they don't always do to do that, like, to you, does it feel like, okay, that means something? I mean, obviously you've got one national championship, all this,
Mm-hmm.
but to like have that respect that they're going to try to change it up for you.
No, I know Bill's going to do whatever it takes to win. Doesn't matter who they're playing, and he's a great coach, and that's why you got to beat them. And no matter who he's playing, he'll put them in positions to be successful. And again, it's really gratifying when you do win because you know you've had to earn it.
Scott, how big was Jalen?
Huge. He's been great. He's put in a lot of work, but his offensive rebounding, taking care of the basketball. I mean, he had 9 boards tonight, 11 and 9. His efficiency shooting, 3 for 6. He makes free throws, 3 assists, 1 turnover. If we get 3 assists, 1 turnover every game out of him. I mean, he's a low turnover guy, but the 3 assists was great too.
Scott, seems like you guys are figuring out different ways to win. Does it seem that way to you? It's not the same way.
In the Big 12, teams are too good, coaches are too good, players are too good, and it's hard to have on nights every night, and everybody's got defensive schemes to shut down different people. So, and everyone's got some elite defenders, and you need other people to step up. I thought LJ really gave us a great lift first half, and he got some good looks. Credit his teammates getting him open and finding him, but then he made some tough shots and tough plays too.
Scott, in the first half, Langston stopped that lob attempt by KU. What was kind of working for him there that he snipped out that play and stopped it?
We just want him to be active. So I mean, Langston's a great athlete, and his explosivity and his motor's been able to get a lot better after the first couple weeks in the season. I mean, for a while there, he just wasn't moving real well, and now he's getting a lot more athletic, and as you saw in his drives, he can finish, he can elevate. And we need that because he's a bigger guard for us.
Scott, interesting. You knock out a top 10 Kansas team at home, and the students don't feel the need to storm the court. What does that say about where this program's going?
Yeah, I don't know what it would take to get a storming of the court now because, I mean, you win 23 in a row, 19 in a row, 21 in a row. Been ranked number 1, so I mean I think our students have helped with all of that, so they deserve a lot of credit, and we're very thankful for that. At the same time, our players have done a great job in establishing a winning tradition.
Scott, when Kansas took their only lead there early in the second half, you guys responded with a 12-3 run.
Mm-hmm.
Langston started it with a 3-point play, but how big was that just to answer and not
Yeah, I thought
get away
Yeah, I thought that was big. Our bench outscoring them 13-2, and our bench is getting better and better, and you need to have that. I mean, you look at the last couple of years. I mean, last year we had LJ on the bench, Jeremy Sohan on the bench, and Jonathan Chamachacha on the bench. So, like, as a coach, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, let's go. I mean, that's a great bench. So we're developing that rotation again in depth, which is great.
Scott, Kansas had just 6 fast break points. Was that a big emphasis for you this game?
Yeah, it's an emphasis every game for us, but we were better at it today.
Coach, what do you think about Flo's play today in the post? It seemed like he was really important down there by himself.
Yeah, I thought his stat line doesn't show a lot, but the big number it shows is plus 11. And in 26 minutes, that's the biggest thing that stands out. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about, winning.
And Scott, it looked like when you all were pressing some tonight, it gave KU a little bit of trouble. What was effective when you pressed KU tonight?
I think just early on, maybe they were a little rattled, and then we backed out of it. I mean, in big Monday games, you don't want to give up easy ones, and schematically, they're always going to put their guys in position to break stuff, and then you don't want to give up a 3. So we pick and choose our times.
That was Scott Drew about beating Kansas. Come back tomorrow. I'm excited still that Baylor beat Kansas. It's late that I'm recording this. We're going to talk about R.J. Martinez tomorrow. John Garcia Jr. joins the show. R.J. is Baylor's new quarterback. This has been, don't miss it, Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Baylor.